Hi, good evening. Welcome along to Inside Liverpool. The champions look like they'd set up another dominant season after their summer recruitment, but 5 defeats in 6 Premier League games mean they're 8th in the table and 8 points off the leaders Arsenal. Well, Jamie Carragher, Emil Heskey and my guest David James are here to look at what is going wrong.
I'm here at Anfield alongside the Athletics Liverpool reporter James Pearce, where alongside performances and results, we'll be looking at the dynamic between Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike.
They invested heavily in the summer, so are they prepared to go again in January? I'll discuss that and look at some of the stats behind the signings. And you can get involved in the discussion. Head to our Inside Liverpool live blog on the Sky Sports app. The QR code will take you straight there. You can share your opinions and vote in our poll. We want to know if Liverpool should prioritise the Champions League over the Premier League.
But let's start with part of our in-depth interview with Jamie Carragher. Now, he's backed Liverpool's decision to spend close to £450 million in the summer, a British record, but he thinks they need to spend again in January.
I felt they did need to bring that number of players in because, you know, I can go through the team of last season or the squad. So Simicast, the manager didn't have confidence in him, so you needed to buy a left-back. Kwanzaa moved on. They had to replace Trent. Harvey Elliott moved on. Again, the manager didn't have much confidence in him, so he went and bought another number 10, if you like, Inverts. Nunes, you know, the manager never had confidence in him, so he's gone and brought in, you know, Isak. And obviously we've got the tragic situation of Diogo Jota. So then another attacking player comes in. So they were replacing players the manager didn't have confidence in.
And we speak about this huge amount of money that they spent. Do they need to spend again in January? And if so, where do they need to look in January in terms of more incomings? Yeah,
Liverpool need to spend in January. Yeah, they need to buy a centre-back. They should have bought a centre-back. In the summer, they didn't. And then the one centre-back they did buy, Leone, a young Italian player, looked fantastic. Unfortunately got an ACL injury, so we won't see him till next season. So, yeah, I mean, Liverpool are probably one injury away at centre-back from, I mean, really derailing the season. So they have to go to the market in January.
Well, let's bring in David James, a man with 277 appearances for Liverpool over 7 seasons. Nice to see you, David. Right. £446 million spent in the summer. Did they get it badly wrong?
Not at all. I think what you really have to understand is that the success of Arne Slot last season, I don't think was expected by Liverpool. They didn't bring him in to win the Premier League in his first go. I think listening to Jamie there, the way that Liverpool do their recruitment, I think these players who they've brought in would have been on the radar even before Arne Slot. So I think there was a strategy by the club, a plan by the club to build a formidable squad to be able to challenge for the Premier League. I suppose the irony is, having won the Premier League in the first season, the expectation by those outside of the club would be that they should be winning the Premier League every season, especially when they brought in the calibre of players that they have.
And especially since they won their first 7 games. They brought in Alexander Isak on deadline day. Everyone was saying, not that they were going to win it, that they were just going to win it early and by how much. So what's gone wrong?
Well, yeah, I think I was part of that bandwagon. Although, I mean, the caveat to that was the conversations I was having were before Isak was signed, and I just felt there may have been enough already. But as I said, the strategy for Liverpool would be over a number of seasons, not just 1 or 2. And bringing Isak in the way that it was brought in, and I'm not talking about the off-field stuff, but the lack of training time to get him up to match speed at the beginning, I think was obviously impactful. But I don't think they've got it wrong. I just think that because of what happened last season, it's more a case of comparisons don't look particularly great at the moment.
Okay, we're going to go much deeper into that, and I'm going to push you a lot more in just a bit. All right, but let's go to Anfield now. We can speak to 2 men who follow the club week in, week out, every season. The Athletics' James Pearce and our very own Vinny O'Connor. Gentlemen, very good evening. Vinny, let me start with you. Now, early results were good, performances perhaps not so. Results now not good, but have performances actually changed?
Well, I thought we'd seen Liverpool turn a corner, actually. OK, the performance wasn't probably their best against Aston Villa, but they got the win, and then they followed it up with that stunning performance against Real Madrid. Unfortunately, then came the defeat to Manchester City, and it was a pretty convincing defeat in the end. And certainly Manchester City, you have to say, look, the better team on the day. But going back to the start of the season, I think there's been a lack of consistency in Liverpool's performance. I think we saw problems right from the off in that opening day against Bournemouth. They were 2-0 up, were pegged back to 2-2, eventually dramatically won the game by 4-2. But then the Newcastle game after that, again, 2-0 up. This time it was 10 men that came back at them and got it back to 2-2. And of course, dramatically winning that game once again, this time Rio Ungamoa with that stunning winner for Liverpool on the night. But again, we saw perhaps a better performance in some ways against Arsenal, certainly more solid at times, and a stunning free kick from Dominic Szoboszlai that took all 3 points. Not the best performance away at Burnley, but able to get over the line with that late Mo Salah penalty, of course. Again, a 2-goal lead slip then in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid before taking all 3 points there. They beat Everton 2-1. Then came the EFL Cup win over Southampton before that first defeat of the season against Crystal Palace. And we know the problems that they faced since then. I think there is mitigation. Injuries haven't helped them at times. It hasn't helped some of the players settling in. Obviously, you can highlight Alexander Isak. You can highlight Jeremy Frimpong as well at right back. And on top of that, of course, someone like Connor Bradley hasn't been at full fitness for much of the season. Same goes really for someone like Alexis McAllister. And when you've got problems like that, you don't get consistency of selection. And I think when you don't have that consistency in selection, it makes it very difficult to get consistency in performance as well.
Sure. James, Jamie Carragher made the point that they had to invest heavily because Slot didn't actually trust some of his title-winning squad. Is Jamie right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think if you look at last season, it was very much a core group of 13 or 14 players that helped Liverpool win the Premier League. And Slot said himself towards the back end of last season, if he had any regrets, it probably was not being able to rotate more, because he felt that contributed to Liverpool kind of fatigue setting in and performances tailing off. You know, he particularly talked about, you know, a number of times that week in March when Liverpool go out the Champions League to PSG and then they lose the Carabao Cup final to Newcastle, and it went pretty flat. And I think so this time around he felt like he needed more players that he knew he could count on. He was always going to rotate more with one eye on lasting the pace right through to May. And, you know, that's effectively borne out in Liverpool embarking on what was the biggest spending spree in their history.
All right then, James. So what is the main difference between this season and last season?
I mean, the biggest difference for me is how easy they've been to get at in terms of it. I mean, you only have to look at, you know, the number of goals conceded. I think it's 17 after 11 league games. It was only 6 at the same stage a year ago. And, you know, that it doesn't get, you know, any more glaring than that. I think out of possession that they have been too easy to play through. There's been a vulnerability that wasn't there last season where we often talked about things like control and discipline and organisation and Liverpool's ability to control games. They've just lost that. And I think there are a number of reasons for that. You know, of course, with big changes comes inevitably a period of transition. You know, of course, you know, there was, you know, the tragedy that everyone connected with the club endured in the summer, which, you know, that's inevitably going to have a lasting impact on this season. And some players, as Vinny touched on there, players who were so influential last season haven't been at the same level. Some seem to have lost a bit of confidence. Others, you know, it's been a fitness issue. You know, someone like McAllister missing a chunk of pre-season. The same with Connor Bradley. You know, Mo Salah. You know, I think we can see with Salah the challenge of suddenly trying to form new relationships, where for so long in his Liverpool career he kind of knew that he always had Trent Alexander-Arnold behind him.
James, Vinny, for the moment, thank you very much. We'll be back to you a little bit later in the show. But now we're going to bring in our transfer expert, Mark McAdam. Mark, Jamie Carragher said they're going to spend in January. Will they?
They certainly got the opportunity to spend. No football club in the Premier League spends £446.5 million in the summer with a plan to go and spend another £100 million in January.
So they got it wrong?
They didn't get it wrong. I think if you look at the contracts they dished out to the players, 4, 5, 6 years, not 3, 4, 5 months. It's a long-term plan. It's a long-term project. And I think that's the key thing. They are trying to build a team that can compete for many, many years to come. And of course, in this modern era of social media and noise and speculation, and everyone wants to have their say, they'll look at the start to the season, they'll say, actually, this isn't a great start. Liverpool have got it wrong. The players haven't hit the ground running. If I was to say to you, between January the 1st and the end of last season and the start of this season and now, Liverpool's win percentage, is it better now or between January the 1st and the end of the season?
Money's been, I've read that maybe £100 million they're going to spend. Now, Semenyo's got a release clause of 65 million quid. Gay, they agreed a deal of 35 million. Now, if my maths is right, is that the 100 million?
Let's be honest, Liverpool are one of those sides that use data to recruit players. That's the way they've always operated. And they've always operated with, if the player is right for our football club, the market value is correct, and we believe he can improve the team, will we go and sign that player? Absolutely. They're in the market for players. They want to recruit, they want to strengthen, they want to improve. We know that they got so close to signing Mark Gay, like you rightly say, on deadline day. It didn't happen. Are they still in the market for a defensive-minded player? Absolutely. Will that be executed in January? We don't know. Talking about Mark Gay, his situation is very different because he's going into the last 6 months of his contract. He can sign a pre-contract agreement with a team outside of the Premier League in January, or he could decide, I'm going to wait until the summer where I will be able to garner much more finance, a better signing-on fee, higher wages, and I'll probably have the pick of some of the best sides in Europe. Anton Semenyo, another player that has been linked with Liverpool. We know that they like him. We know that Manchester City and Spurs are also big admirers of the Bournemouth man who, as we now know, has a release clause. It'll be one to watch. Is that an area they're looking at? Out wide? Absolutely.
I'm thinking it, and I know people at home are probably thinking it. They broke the record in the summer by spending gazillions. How can they go again?
Well, quite simply, Liverpool are run very, very well. You look at the summer of 2024 where their spend was virtually nothing. And of course, you have to remember that whilst this figure of 446.5 million is their outlay over the course of this summer, a Premier League record, you also have to remember that the net spend was actually lower than Arsenal's. That's because they sold so well. You look at some of those players that they sold, some of them that had come through the academy, some of them that had been at the club for some period of time, so they didn't actually owe a lot of money on those particular players. So the profits they were able to generate from those sales was actually really high. You look at that 218.4 million, divide that by the summer of 24 and the summer of 25, they've actually got a net spend of about £109 million, which for a Premier League side is actually quite low, particularly one like Liverpool.
That's going to keep the bank manager happy, but I'm going to go back to you and I'm going to press you. They still spent £446 million in the summer, and you're telling me they're going to go again. Did they get it wrong?
Absolutely not. If you walk into that Liverpool boardroom and you spoke to the movers and shakers, the people that run the club, the people that make the big money decisions, they will say we are totally calm and relaxed with what we did. We believe in our recruitment. We believe in these players, we believe in Arne Slot, and we believe in what we're doing. We've won 2 Premier League titles in the last 30-odd years. We are a team that has not historically won Premier League titles. We are looking to be one of those sides that continue to press and probe and win and operate at the sharp end of the table. And we are building a team that we believe can compete for many years to come. If you look at the ages of the players they signed in the summer, 21, 22, 24, 23, 18, 25. These are young players that haven't even hit their prime. They are building a project. You look at the Arsenal project, for example, Mikel Arteta going in 2019. They are 5 or 6 years down the line of their project. This is essentially year one plus a little bit of Liverpool. New sporting director, new manager, Michael Edwards back at the football club. This is just the start, and the players they've signed are all on the start of what they're hoping to be a really successful journey. But to answer your question, the people that make the decisions, are they relaxed? Absolutely. Do they believe in everything they did? Totally. Do they believe it will become good? 100%.
I've got to bring David James in. David, are you buying that? I mean, Liverpool will love that, but hang on. They spent fortunes in the summer and they're going to go again this time. Surely they got it wrong.
No, I don't. I agree with Mark there. I think the strategy, as I said at the beginning, is a long-term strategy. The money that's actually been spent, which is quite common in football nowadays, it's not all up front. This will be spread over the course of a few years, whatever. So it's not an actual 50 million outlay. But I think when you also add the fact that they'll get the bonus for winning the Premier League, all of these bonuses which they wouldn't have envisaged they would have got from Arne Slot in his first season, it's actually a better position for them to be able to, as you said, Mark, possibly go out in the January transfer window and spend another 100 million. So not ideal because of the comparison to last season, but ideal in the bigger picture, I'm sure.
You two ganging up on me. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back,
Liverpool's 2025-26 season is increasingly being defined by growing pains. And for Arne Slot, those growing pains are starting to look like deep-rooted structural issues. Despite an eye-watering £446 million spent on new signings, many analysts argue the squad lacks the cohesion and balance it once had. One major issue is the tactical fit of Florian Wirtz. Slot paid a premium for his creativity, hoping he'd fill the creative void left by Trent Alexander-Arnold. But Wirtz's adaptation has been painfully slow. He's been shuttled around different roles, often far from his favorite attacking midfield spot, and his impact has been minimal. Critics like Dwight York even suggest Wirtz is blocking the most effective attacking configuration, one that would maximize the potential of Isaac and Ekitike. Slot, for his part, defends the experimentation. He argues that the spending spree required patience and that this roster required flexibility. Still, supporters and pundits aren't convinced. According to a tactical analysis by Soccer Tonic, Liverpool's defensive stability has taken a hit. The team concedes too freely, players seem unsure of their defensive responsibilities, and there's a troubling lack of natural defensive nous when recovery is required. Another concern, squad depth. Despite the huge outlay, Slot has complained about a lack of genuine quality rotation options. That's worrying for a team with ambitions in both the Premier League and Europe. Off the pitch, chatter about Slot's future is growing louder. According to Goal.com, the club is already lining up potential replacements. Meanwhile, Wirtz's father has publicly stated that the young midfielder feels the system isn't as organized as he expected. In short, Liverpool's spending has bought high-quality talent, but chemistry, structure, and clarity are still missing. Slot's gamble may yet pay off, but time is running out. The Reds must solve the puzzle or risk seeing their title defense unravel before it truly gets going.